how long you've actually been in real estate, and then we'll kind of jump in.
Yeah, perfect. So I got my license in 2021. At the same time, I was operating. I used to own an appliance store, so I used to do scratch and spread appliances with a partner, and I had a newborn at the same time. So my partnership kind of went sideways, and I had the license. So I was like, all right, I got to do something with it. That year, I only sold one home to my sister. She was coming from California to Connecticut, and that was my only transaction. So I was still kind of, managing my store full time. 22 happened. That's kind of when the store, I had to close my store just because of the partnership. And I found myself needing cash. So I went back to as a store manager at CVS for about a year. And that was great. I had a 70K salary. I was home on the weekends and I never had that before. So that was cool for about a month. And I was like, this is not me. I like the, 7-day work week and just being out there. So that year I kind of got dialed in. I went to my broker. I was like, okay, what can we do here? I really want to make this my full time. At that time, it was part time. So I hopped on Opcity, Realtor.com leads. So I was running them like hell. I didn't know anything else. So
Yeah.
that's all I knew. So I was just really consistent with my follow up and I was able to close a lot of deals. So that 22, I went to 8 deals, had one listing. That year was a multifamily, which I still kind of manage, which was interesting. And then I had 7 buyers. My first deal and I closed in October. That's kind of when I started working really heavily into the real estate. So from 23 to, sorry, from 22 to 23, I ended up the year at 7.5 million, and I did 25 deals. I did 3 listings and 22 buyers. I had
It's a lot of
42.
work. That's a
Yeah,
lot of work. So then tell us about what happened in 24, then we'll talk about what's going on in 25.
so 24 was a great year. That was so I quit my CBS job at the middle of 23, actually. So I took that full time in August of 23. So 24 was my first full year. And I did 13.5 million on market. I closed 60 deals, 43 transactions total. The 20 were rentals from my multifamilies I sold in the past. So, but the 43 came down to 19 listings and 24 buyers. On top of
Awesome.
that, yeah, on top of that, I did a lot of off market from like circle prospecting, and I've kind of found the buyers to them. So I did about 1.5 million off market deals.
That's
So
great. So then what does this year look like? And then we'll talk about what kind of break down your business and how you're going about building it.
yeah, absolutely. So year to date, I'm at 10 million, 10.1. I have 42 total transactions, 29 total transactions rather. The 42 is where the rentals, but 29 total transactions will account for 21 listings and 8 buyers.
So
So
now things are starting to shift. So I guess the first part to start with
yeah,
is what obviously made you decide to shift your business from a buyer's agent heavy business to saying, okay, I need to be a listing agent, just out of curiosity, and then we'll talk about how you're doing it.
yeah, absolutely. So it was a lot to do with you. I was watching your YouTube videos and I heard your stories of how you almost went, had a better relationship with the family and that was really kind of translated into my life to the most part. I had a newborn, I was never home, and my wife, she's awesome, so she doesn't really complain much, but I know it had an effect. And I personally I was getting burned out and I knew there
Yeah.
was there was another way to this where like for example this year, 21 listings, I feel like I didn't work as hard. But now when I'm doing the analysis, I'm like, oh wow, I actually did pretty well here. But my I was a lot I had a lot more time with the family, and that's kind of what I was looking for. So I was still
It's
trying to
amazing.
balance.
So
Yep.
essentially, you can produce at a high level, but then obviously control your time, which is the benefit of a listing agent business. So let's
Right.
talk about how you're doing it, right? Because that's a huge shift. So why don't we start at the top? Why don't we get into
Sure.
lead generation? Now you've been in this business since 2021. In
Yep.
that time frame, like most agents do, there's probably a million voices. There's a million things thrown at you. Do this and do that. Of all that, what have you found to be the most effective way for you to go out there and generate listing leads?
Listing leads is getting on the phone, honestly. It's just getting on the phone. I've got so lucky, and that's kind of the thing I'm improving this year. I've got so lucky where I'm dialing for the day and I get 2 appointments. I go to those appointments that turn into those listings. So
Sure.
the follow-up part of it, I'm lacking, and that's kind of what I'm realizing now for to have that continuous business and not burning out, just being on the phones constantly. But it's definitely just definitely prospecting and hitting those targets of different lead sources. My biggest lead source has been Circle Prospect and for sale by owners and for rent by
Okay.
owners.
Got it. So before we get into that,
Yep,
it's important that people understand this, that
sure.
there are so many distractions. How did you come to this realization that you do need to have an outbound prospecting business when there are a million different options? You could do social media, that, marketing this, et cetera, et cetera. Well, how did you make peace with the fact that you have to do what so many agents are looking to avoid, which is actually the hard work, picking up the phone and talking to strangers?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So I've tried everything, as many agents have possibly. I've made a lot of money, and I kind of translated right into like lead services. So, and I
Say
had
that again. You made a lot of money and you spent a lot of money on shiny objects. Fair?
fair, very fair. So I was hopping out from one to another. I still have that problem, but it's kind of slowing down a little bit now.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I spent money on white local leads, basically trying to get buyer leads that way. I spent at the beginning of this year, I even got distracted and I spent a ton of money on PPC leads. So out of everything, the return on investment, just picking up a phone call is kind of the best money possible. Even when I got
So
started,
why did you? So what? Even this year, even knowing what you know now, you still were distracted by the lady in the red dress. Why? What is it that gets you to go away from what you know works so well and try to take the path of least resistance? Is it just that it's like, wow, there's just got to be an easier way? I just can't. What is it for you that gets you to be distracted at times, like all of us do, to be fair?
personally, I think it's the growth. I think I'm trying to grow too soon,
Got it.
where I need to stay focused and I'm adding on different pillars where I don't have one pillar really satisfied. And on top of that, having the funds to really do the other pillars for a long period of time to see the investment. So they
That's
do
good.
work. They do work,
They
but
do
it's just
work. Yeah.
you just have to dump a ton of money into them and you gotta, you gotta wait it out. But yeah, the biggest return on my money has been just calling and hopping on a call and just having those connections.
Got it. Okay. Fair enough. So now let's go to the next layer deep. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're having the most success with circle prospecting for sale by owners and for rent by owners. So when you say circle prospecting, is there any targeting involved, or is it just like literally you going after an area, or are you targeting a list like downsizers or something with inside of your circle prospecting?
Correct. So within my circle prospecting, I got very fortunate early in my career. I got a phone call from a couple of investors because I was doing some rentals anyhow, and my business grew tremendously just because of that. They started giving me a lot of opportunities in terms of the multifamily. They're a property management company, etc. So I niched into the multis.
Mm,
I was working with a lot of buyers for the multifamilies. New York is close by, so a lot of investors are coming to Connecticut for that. So I took advantage of that. So when I do circle prospect, I typically like to circle prospect multifamilies, absentee multifamily owners. And then I play around with a list, of course, people that recently bought it over like the last 3 years, and then people that have gotten it for 10 plus years.
got
Um,
it. That makes sense. And
yeah,
then you're going after for rent by owners and for sale by owners. So obviously, you have a niche, and this is what I try to help agents understand. Like, you have a superpower, and that is working with investors because of
yeah.
your experience. So walk us through your tech stack. Like, where are you getting the data, and what is the prospecting platform that you use? That's the next question that people generally have. Like, where are
Perfect.
you
Yeah.
getting this contact information?
Yeah. The best lead source that I found personally for my market has been My Plus Leads as well as Batch Leads recently. So
Got
Batch
it.
Leads is such a value to it and such a bargain for the price that you pay. You just never run out of leads essentially. And My Plus
Totally
Leads,
agree.
you get that in. I recently switched dialers to Enzo.
How's
Game
that been?
changer, game changer. I'm like super excited. I had some ISAs actually working for me, funny enough, and after I introduced Enzo, they both left. So
Just
um
because you're able to have so many more contacts, or
correct. They were not used to the amount of contacts, it was just back to back contacts essentially and conversations. So it was a little bit too much for the time period and like what they were doing. So they personally feel like it was too much, which is a great sign for me because that's kind of what we
yeah,
want. We always aim for the higher rates
yeah.
of communication there. So
So how much? Let's talk about. Let's break this down.
Yeah.
So how much prospecting are you doing to produce the level that you're producing? So again, this year you're going to end up, I don't know, maybe 11, 12, 13 million, something like that. But how much prospecting are you doing every day?
Yeah. So on a daily basis, I worked really well last year into the beginning of this year until I got distracted with everything else. I started flipping this year, but anyways, back to the story. I was doing 8 to 11 on a daily basis. I was really following your schedule. 8 to 11 was prospecting. At that point, I was also hitting expires because I was the first contact.
Sure.
Since then, I kind of stopped the expired lead source. But 8 to 11, no matter what, was just on the phone, dialed in my office, zoned in essentially.
Got it.
So,
And with Enzo now, like how many conversations can you have in a 2 or 3 hour block of prospecting time?
so since I got Enzo, I haven't even been prospecting for 2, 3 hours because I just hit my kind of my numbers that I'm
Contact
looking
goal?
my contact goal correct and the amount of leads I'm getting for the day. So I'm doing about an hour, hour and a half between breaks and still forced and just like organizing the leads, but about an hour.
And how many contacts is that? Because again, you got onto Enzo because the tool makes you more efficient.
I want to,
So
yeah, I want to say
uh,
about 25 to 30 contacts an hour.
it's amazing. And
Yeah,
in that period of time, you're able to produce, like you said, one or two high quality listing opportunities. Is that fair?
correct. Yes. There are a lot of
All
nurtures
right.
just because of the business I'm in, but yes.
Yeah, I mean that's huge. Let's talk about how you're able to do that. Let's talk about the conversation, right? Because it's one thing for somebody to say, "Okay, fine, I'll go get batch leads. I'll go get my leads plus. I'll go get Enzo, and I'll hop on that thing and I'll make the calls." Fine. It's a whole nother thing to actually produce results based on a skill set. I'm sure you'd agree with that. So,
Correct.
talk to us about what you've learned when it comes to actually selling over the phone and some skills that you've learned that have helped you convert.
Absolutely. So it was very funny when you came out with a new script book. You said this is the script book you'll never use, and I didn't really
Yeah,
understand at the time, but now I do because it's basically you broke it down so well that you understand the conversation and the way it's supposed to go. That was my biggest thing that I lacked in the past. I used to read the script book and for word for word rather, and just it wasn't going well. Now I focus on getting my pattern interrupt in the beginning, asking for permission, and then going and looking for the dart, basically. Desire, ability, reason, and timing. If I could play into all those in the conversation naturally, I feel very good about the conversation. So
it's
just
amazing.
ask and asking questions and pushing back. Like that's been the biggest thing. Just pushing back as much as you can. You're not selling, are you? Like you're not going to sell no matter what. Things like that. So
So for the audience who doesn't know the skill sets because maybe they're new to the inner circle or they don't understand the reverse selling system yet. When you say push back, you're talking about, you gave a little example, but the example was instead of asking people, are you interested in selling? What you're saying is what's helped you a lot is doing the opposite of that. It's when we're having conversations with prospects, rather than us saying, "Hey, are you interested in selling? Would you be open to selling?" What you're doing is you're gently pushing them away. You're saying things like, "Listen, I kind of get the feeling that, it wouldn't matter how much you could get for your home in this market. It probably doesn't make sense to sell right now. Would that be fair?" And those are the people that you're looking to say, "Well, actually, we are open to the idea. We have been thinking about it, etc." And that is the skill that you're talking about when you're talking about pushing people away, right?
100% correct. Yes, because that just gives them the platform to open up, and they're like, no, actually, this house is too big for us, or no, my son and daughter just graduated, we have to move to Florida, whatever the example is, and then from there, it's all just about having a conversation and just asking questions, like the right questions, and going through the script essentially in your own way.
Yeah, that's great. So what let's talk about lead follow-up for a second. The biggest problem, and I know you said you're still working on this too, right? But like
Yes.
when you think about the production that you've had for the last couple of years, like how important is lead follow-up to you? And what are you doing right now when it comes to lead follow-up to convert these leads into listing appointments?
Absolutely. So going through the platform. So once the seller comes in, I do send a thank you card with my business card, magnet. with my business card and a lottery card. So that goes out immediately. On top of that, I do send them a welcome email, basically with my resume. And from there, it's just you're asking for when you're gonna call them back. So you're kind of during that conversation, either aiming to get the appointment or you're following up because you talked about setting an appointment. So that's the biggest thing I realized about follow up is like before I had trouble, it's like, what do I say when I call these people back? Well, you're aiming for an appointment, so you should just ask for the appointment basically on a very simplified level. So
Yeah.
correct. And the people that you are having a hard time to call back, I realize, well, they're not really leads. That's why you are struggling to call those people back and kind of clearing up the database essentially.
Yeah. So 100% agree. So you send out a thank you card. You have a good conversation. You send them a welcome email. It's got your resume. Maybe it has a video introducing yourself, perhaps.
Yeah.
Do you do anything else? Do you do any direct mail? Do you do any emailing? Certainly, the vast majority of your follow up, I'd have to assume, comes from phone calls. Fair?
Phone calls, correct. Yeah, it's majority phone calls. I don't have a newsletter in place at the moment, truthfully
Mm-hmm.
speaking. That's something I really want to establish because it's definitely going to help us. There's a lot of things that I should be doing that I realized um, that I haven't, and I see the consequences of this year. Before, I didn't realize the power of follow up as much as I have this year because I go through my database and I'm calling people back that I should have called about a month, 2 months ago, and I see they're already sold or they're already on the market, or you call them
That's
back
painful.
and they're already working with somebody else. I recently also got Fellow, so integrated all my cold call leads. And over the last 2 weeks, I realized that I missed two listing opportunities because I hadn't done my follow-up on time. So it's very simple. I use Follow Up Boss. Like you have the task reminders and you just got to stick to the system and just pick up the phone call and just call them and provide value essentially.
It's great. I totally agree. I mean, follow up is an area. Well, here's the thing. I think to your point is you're doing, 10, 12, 13 million dollars a year in business and you're just now implementing lead follow up, right? That's what's so exciting. I mean, that's what could take you to 20 million perhaps next year. And
Right.
so and I think the other point on lead follow up is when most people think about lead follow up, they think automation. How do I just automate this relationship? Doesn't work that way. You can't automate this relationship to turn this conversation into an actual appointment. You have to do the voice to voice phone calls for that person to actually open up an opportunity for you to go and win the business. You agree with that?
I agree completely. What I've done recently too is I do a quick search before I call somebody. I see what's sold in their neighborhood, and then I send them the MLS link and a text, and then I call them maybe 5 minutes later. Be like, hey, I just sent you something that's sold in the neighborhood. This is kind of going to impact your value in such a way, etc. Recently,
Smart.
we've been having a lot of the monthly supplies increasing in Connecticut. Last year was about a month. Now we're about 2 months. So it's great talking points to kind of discuss with those people that were in the system about 6 months in, 12 months in. So it makes you look as the market expert, especially when you're talking about data. You really get
Yeah.
that feel.
It's great. Okay. Talk to us about the listing appointment because you are so buyer heavy, right? And so
Correct.
you've transitioned primarily now as a listing agent. You had to learn that listing presentation, right? Because again, yes, doing your prospecting is important. Yes, building your prospecting skills is important. But it won't mean anything if you go on appointments and you can't win the business because you can't present. So, what has been most helpful in the work that you and I have done together that's helped you go on listing appointments and actually win the business?
Yeah, absolutely. My biggest thing that I focus on my listing appointments is the data, as I mentioned just earlier, but it's in terms of how you have explained that to me. Right? From where to find the data on our MLS that nobody really talks about, and kind of telling the story, not just repeating the information and being able to tell a story according to it. That's the
Sure.
biggest thing. And then from our listing presentation, I spend the most time on basically going over your last year to this year and kind of the market snapshot. That's what I'm looking for. Just going over the
Got
market
it.
snapshot.
And so you're presenting the data in a way that it's a story rather than just, okay, here's the stats. Let me just tell you the stats and then hopefully you do business with me. So When, and I'm curious too. So you provide the data, you're able to tell a story. Is there anything else that you find at the appointment that really differentiates yourself from maybe other agents that they're talking to that's helping you to become that obvious choice?
Price bracketing.
Price bracketing. Tell us about
Right.
that.
Price bracketing, because nobody else talks about price bracketing. And when you explain it clearly, it opens up the eyeballs and it really makes you the expert in the marketplace. Especially with my record, I've all the houses I list, I price bracket and they sell fairly quickly. So it gives us the most amount of views and everything around it. Nobody else is talking about that. All the other agents are referring to, pricing it at 399.9 or some odd number. So once you explain to them that portion on top of the market snapshot and some on the higher end neighborhoods, I've taken out my clients on a home tour before we do the listing appointment.
Smart.
So
You're actually taking them to go see their competition.
correct. That has helped a lot, especially in areas that I'm not really familiar with, where I got questioned like, well, you're about 40 minutes away. What do you know about this area? Well, the market speaks for itself. Let me show you how I analyze the market. And we went on those tours. We compared, and at the end of it, they saw the value essentially. They know that I know the market no matter where it is. So
It's great. That's amazing. Because on coaching calls, we talk about that all the time, and newer agents just have a hard time wrapping their head around, okay, I actually have to go out there and show them the competition or study the competition. That's how I can actually become more believable. So that's amazing that you're doing that. Now, let's talk about pricing for a second. So, what are you doing when you have all these sellers that have these expectation of the 2021, 2022 home prices? And it's difficult to get those prices. How are you able to not just win the listing, but get them at the right price?
correct, yeah. So it's all about the upfront agreement
Mm,
and being transparent with them from the get-go and translating that throughout the whole entire appointment, essentially. Asking for their permission to be honest with them and to shoot them straight, essentially. From there, I position it in a way where like, hey, listen, my job here is to kind of go over the data, make you understand it. At the end of the day, it's your home. You're gonna be the one that's gonna make the decision on the price. If we do, or I accepted a few listings early on where I did not agree on the price, and horror stories. We sold it
that's right.
80,000 under, and that kind of builds like more resilience and experience and conviction when you're speaking to these people about the fact that, hey, we have the most leverage when we first go on market. And this is what's going to make us the obvious choice because everybody's shopping for a product at the end of the day. This is just another product that we have to position in the right way.
So smart. Yeah, makes total sense. And, I guess if you could go back, and get licensed in 2021 again, would you have done it the same way? Would you have gone buyer first, or would you have focused on being a listing agent first? Or what would you have done differently if you could go back?
I would change a few things. The buyer experience, to your point about previewing homes, that got me to preview a lot of homes.
True.
A ton of homes. So after a while, because in the beginning I wasn't really confident in myself to know the market as well. But after seeing every house with these buyers for months on end and dragging you around, you really get a feel for it. So that helped me. The biggest thing I would change of 24 to 25 would be my follow-up. I would
Mm.
say follow-up has been the most important thing that I've been lacking because I feel like I went through the program once, I got some success, and then I kind of didn't do the rest of the program to a full extent. And me getting the amount of success I've done so far, I came to a realization a few months ago where like I let go of my ISAs, I let go of my assistant. Last year, end of the year, I hired an assistant to ISAs. It was going really great. Very disciplined. But if you're not following up with those leads, there's no point of generating those leads. So I was spending a lot of money for no reason. And my personal mission has been to go back it's from the basics and follow the program step by step and actually do everything that says there because I only done 75% of it and I had great success. So imagine if I do 100%, like where I would be next year. That's kind of the conversation I've been having myself. So
It's
that's my
great.
goal.
What is the goal for 2026? And then we can open this up with any questions in the live audience. You guys can raise your hand on the Zoom, and I'll get to you guys in just a second. But so, what is the goal for next year?
Next year, I want to end with 80 as a total. And then the following year I want to hit that 100. And then from there I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do. I think it's an ego thing, but 80 is my number. I was supposed to be on track this year. It's just like 65, but again, with those discretions, I was flipping a property, purchased a property, then so sticking to it. 80 will be the goal next year.
It's amazing, amazing. And so the distractions again is the flip, and it's the, has that been worth it, or do you wish
No.
that you would have just focused on keeping
Yeah.
the main thing the main thing?
Correct. Yeah, at the beginning of 25, I started PPC ads for cash offers with my investors. So I was going on a lot of appointments. I spent maybe 20,000. I made back about 2 grand. Just so um
Yeah.
and spent about 6 months doing that. And then I also purchased a property which took 2 months over budget, over timeline rather, 40K over budget. So yeah, I'm just finally selling that one. I'm done with my remodel, so I'm really excited to just go back to the basics. Is getting on phone calls. I realize it's what makes me the most excited and the most happiest. So
Yeah, and it's just as simple. Just keep it simple, and
it's
it's
so
really
simple.
profitable. It just happens. I was talking to you about this before we let everybody in. It's like
Yeah,
it happens all the time. Somebody will rise, right? They'll win the Super Bowl, so to speak. They'll get really successful. They'll start making a ton of money, and then they'll
right.
stop doing all the things that got them there in the first place, and then they
Yeah,
fall off the rails to say, geez, I got to get right back to the fundamentals. We have to stop dismissing the fundamentals for not being valuable and realize that the success, it only happens when you master the fundamentals
correct.
forever, right? Forever. And it's just building on top of that. So this has been great. Okay. What questions do you guys have for Mustafa? We've got him for maybe another 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, go ahead, Philip. We'll go to you first.
Hey, Mustafa.
Hi, Philip.
Hey, thank you so much for sharing your journey. It's really inspiring, and I appreciate your sharing both the ups and the downs. It's
Yeah,
really helpful to see how someone kind of deals with all those challenges. I wanted to just ask you about working with investors. It sounds like
yeah,
you have had some success with that. I was wondering if you could just maybe talk about a couple transactions where you've been able to close with an investor? Because I know Brandon has cautioned us not to let them burn through a lot of time and
yes.
use you for research, but it sounds like you've been able to develop some good relationships. So if you could just talk about that a little bit more, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely, Philip. So great question. I had both ends of the inspector's experience. I had some investor that just, kick your wheels essentially, and they never really make offers that are correct, and they send you a bunch of listings and properties to run comps on. They're out of state. You got to run and you got to check all those out for them. And it becomes a drag because you're making, 10 offers a week and you're not getting anything accepted and you're, just running around. So at some point you got to really determine like the relationship value there. However, I've been blessed as well to run into investors which are very heavily in the market because currently and actively. So that's been the difference. You got to find people that are actually in the market right now that already own units that have experience. I stay away from leads that I get as buyers. For example, they come in, and most of the time they're wholesalers trying to act as investors. So you got to just vet them properly and go through the experience level. Yes, somebody could be just starting off, but you got to see where they're heading and what they're looking to do longer term, and to kind of evaluate if it's worth spending your time there, essentially.
Yeah. So, and that's exactly right, Philip. And I'll add to that. So, and I'm so glad you brought that up because I have coached you to be very, very cautious because you've brought up the investor things many times. And the thing is that what Mustafa just said is exactly right. Most investors, most are trying to do one, they're trying to hit a home run on one deal. So these are the people that say, okay, I got to go and put offers on 100 to get my one. And so what he's talking about, just like qualifying a buyer or a seller, we qualify the investor. Do they have transactions? Do they have inventory? What have they done this year? And you're looking for the people to say, yeah, we do 30 to 40, transactions per year, or flips, or acquisitions, or holds. You're looking for someone who's actually transacting, and you're not getting caught up with the investor who wants to hit the home run once in 2025. Those are the ones you have to be very, very cautious of.
Correct.
Okay, and if I could just quickly follow up, Mustafa, I was wondering if you get more traction with like a buy and hold investor who's looking for a multifamily that they can operate. Because what I find is with the fix and flip investors, they're looking for that real steep discount, and it's just too big of a price gap because the seller usually wants to get as close to fair market value as they can.
Correct. Yeah, so I experienced that a lot with my flippers because they're always on a hunt for a deal, essentially, like you said. And a lot of the sellers are very educated nowadays, so they know what their properties are worth. So that becomes very difficult. You just got to find the right situation. So we're prospecting. Sometimes I spend an hour, 2 hours a day prospecting at distressed properties, right? I buy from the share group, for example. They're really great leads. I I was able to secure two properties from there, just a few lists I purchased. And you got to go in there because everybody has a story. Like I realized that once I was running the PPC ads for cash offers, because before I didn't realize why would somebody want to sell it at a discount. But there's so many factors that run into that play. They don't want to go on market because they're embarrassed. They don't have the time. They just need the cash. They're in a bad situation. The house needs so much work it doesn't qualify for anything. Those leads, yes, those go to my flippers, and maybe we could work something out for them. But primarily, because I'm in Connecticut, I have a lot of New Yorkers coming and investing in Connecticut for long-term holds. So I read some Facebook ads in the beginning and targeting those people that are moving into here as investors and kind of just from word of mouth had repeat success from that essentially. So and then circle prospecting, you're adding a lot of value because you're like, hey, when you're talking to an investor, you're like, hey, I could get you an off market free failing maybe. And that's music to their ears essentially.
All right. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
All right, go ahead, Brian. Let's go, Brian. Yeah, Brian R first.
Yes. Hey, Mustafa, how's it going?
Hi Ryan, how's it going?
Yeah, I saw you mention that I'm starting out in the Miami market and I'm new to the academy here. I saw you mention that you're using two data sources, My Plus Leads and Batch Leads. Can you
Correct.
explain why you're using two and what strong suit is My Plus and what strong suits does Batch Leads have?
Yeah, absolutely. So I dialed down my plus leads recently to only get an expireds and the for rent by owner data. In the past, I used to have the expired, I used to have the neighborhood search as well, but it's a very limited amount of how much you could do on the neighborhood search. It's only like 1,000 that you have to keep adding onto the wallet. The reason I use batch leads, I pay like 120, I believe, and you get 10,000 exports a month. So you could circle prospect with that. You could really niche down on the property type and so on. So I use that for my specific list when I'm like dialing land or multis and so on.
Okay.
So is that clear, Brian? So My Plus Leads is a source for what we call bottom of funnel lead sources. So those are your expireds, your old expireds, your for sale by owners, your for rent by owners. What he's talking about is any type of middle or top of funnel, like circle prospecting, bullseye, downsizers, distress, absentee owners, tired landlords, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to have to go to some type of list broker like the share group or like batch. We like batch leads a lot better than what we used to use with share group because the share group's way too expensive and their data did not perform as well as the share group. For $120 a month, you can get 10,000 leads per month. And you can whittle that down, Brian, any way you want. You can go after people that own homes free and clear. You can go after downsizers. You can go after people that have owned it for 10 years. You can go after people that have the home paid off. Any way you want to target the list, that's what you would use a batch leads for, that a My Leads Plus, a Mojo, a Vulcan 7 does not allow you to do.
Okay. All right.
So,
great.
so you see most people in the academy have two sources of data. They've got one for their now business, right? FSBO's expireds. Then they have another source of data for everything that is not bottom of funnel. Because those two companies don't really do the same thing. That's why he has two.
Does some of these data sources vary in how good they are in different areas, different cities? And is there a recommendation how to figure it out besides just trying it?
Well, you gotta test it. But that's why I would say batch leads is a easy one to try because I think they even do a free trial, or something. They give you, although they give all reverse selling users half off. So for $60 for a month, you can try it. So that's pretty low risk to try. That's what I would do.
Okay.
Instead of, investing $1,000 into a list with Share Group, which you can't get a refund on, that would be high risk for me.
Got it. Okay.
Makes sense? Why you have two data sources?
Yeah, makes total sense.
Perfect. Okay, great. All right, Brian, let's go to the next Brian.
Yeah, the Florida bookend, Brian's. I'm in Florida too.
There you go.
Mustafa, thanks so much. And I really appreciate this group. I just signed up on Friday, so I'm really excited to be involved with everybody. Mustafa, it sounds like you had a pretty exponential growth spurt there. And one of the things that confuses me and makes me stumble is when I've gone through that scenario, I want to do everything myself. I'm wondering, do you have a transaction coordinator or a personal assistant or somebody to take some of the day-to-day admin?
Yes. So, yeah, very good question. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't mention in 24. I think I brought it up very quickly, but I did end up hiring an admin. It was virtual. I wouldn't recommend it. I would definitely recommend in person. So I had a virtual, and I also had my wife helping me out as my admin. So she used to do a lot of my follow up and help me organize and stay organized with my calendar, and just working with a lot of buyers just requires a lot of time in terms of booking appointments and reschedules, etc. And I always had about 9 to 10 pending transactions. They were all closing at the same time, but that was kind of my normal. So yes, I definitely ended up hiring an assistant, and then I did have 2 ISAs, which they were producing a lot of leads, but all falls back to you. If you're not managing them properly, and it takes a lot of training to get into where they need to be, which I love training, and that was great for me. It kept me accountable as well. But then it was just the follow up and just the influx of leads. You have to make sure you have the time for everything. But yeah.
So do you have an admin now? You've got a TC that works with?
I don't have an admin now. I since it's been about 4 months now. I kind of had to let go of everybody. During the summer, I purchased a property. I purchased 2 properties, and it kind of really distracted me, and I wasn't there for my team. So that falls back to, like, when you have a team, you have to be there as a leader, and when you're not, don't share the vision with them on a daily basis, it becomes a little more difficult. So that's something I learned as well. So right now I'm back to the basics, kind of try to go through the whole program and fix the issues and the little things that need adjusting essentially.
So, and I'll just jump in too, Brian. So Mustafa, I think you'll find this funny. Mustafa likes to learn the hard way. So when Coach Brandon says, don't hire a VA for your admin, hire somebody in person, he goes and hires the VA. He likes that better. When I tell him, hey, don't go buy buyer leads, he says, fuck that. Let me go hire some buyer leads. When I say, don't use the money you're using from sales and try to do a flip, he goes and tries to do so that's a joke. But the point is, with admin, you'd be much, much, much better off if it is about the money. And Mustafa, I think you'd agree, if you can only afford $500 a month or $1,000 a month for an admin, just get somebody in person part-time. An hour a day is much better with somebody who sits next to you than hiring a VA in God knows where, doing God knows what. It's going to be a nightmare. So that's the recommendation, Brian. But I think the other point is that it is really important for you to learn how to handle a lot on your plate before you leverage out. So I think it's important that you have 2, 3, 4, 5 transactions going on at once while you're continuing to prospect. And different agents are able to handle different things based on how organized they are, what kind of systems they have in place before they have to go run out there and make a hire. So that's important as well. All right, go ahead. Abigail, Valentine, let's get you guys unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you, Brandon?
Doing great.
I'm new. I just really enrolled an hour ago. So,
well, welcome.
Thank you. And I'm from Florida too, Orlando. So 3rd in a row.
There you go.
Mustafa, I had a question. I've never heard of My Lead Plus and Batch Leads. I know I've used Redx in the past and Vulcan 7. Yep. Do you have to download these data and then put it in a dialer? How do you do it? And my second question is, you said that you were distracted. What do you think got you distracted in the first place?
Good
Yeah,
questions.
great questions actually. So yes, with Enzo, you do have to manually upload them unless there's some way I don't know about. But if I used Mojo in the past, so you could auto sync those with my plus leads. Um, Batch leads, I believe you do have to manually upload all the lists, from what I
So
understand.
let me just clarify. Let me just help you guys. All right.
Please,
So with both, yeah, I got you. So both of those, Abigail, my plus leads and batch leads, those are simply data providers.
Data. Okay.
So you can download the data, right? And again, this conversation about lead sources comes up so much in these calls. It's really a process of testing what works well in your case in Orlando. You might find that bottom of funnel leads are better from Vulcan than My Leads Plus. You got to test it. Again, My Leads Plus, Vulcan 7, Mojo, Land Voice, etc. Those are all sources that get you expireds for sell by owners, for rent by owners. Vulcan, Mojo has a dialer that's attached to their data. My Leads Plus does not. Batch Leads is really a data provider. Yeah, they've got a little dialer in there, but it's not very good. So it's mainly to go into Orlando and say, I want 5,000 old expired listings. I want 5,000 tired landlords, because that's what your business plan says. You would get that data, you'd download it, and then you'd upload it into your dialer.
Okay.
And you can do that with whatever dialer you guys are on. If you're on Vortex from RedX, great. If you're on Vulcan, you can upload it to wherever you want. So that's number one. Number two, oh yeah, talk about the distraction. So what gets you distracted? You and I talked about this before we started.
Yeah, so I got distracted this year just because so my admin kind of took a break at the time, was with my wife, which was in person. That was really, really helping out. She took a break, and nonetheless, I wanted to add different sources of business. So I felt
Can I help? Can I just articulate it for you? Because I know this story so well, and then you tell me if I'm right.
Please.
So this is for everybody. Here's what happens every time this happens. The person gets really, really focused. They start getting really good at the fundamentals. Their skill set is really good. You heard him say, I prospected 8 to 11. I never missed. They get really, really good. And as a result, they start making really good money. Then what ends up happening is after they've gotten successful, they start telling themselves, I wonder if I can use this money to get me out of doing all of the hard work and the fundamentals, so I can start to diversify a bit so I don't have to do that again. What they learn is they go down all these rabbit holes, all these marketing things, all these different ideas that lead them right back to the basics. Mustafa, is that the story in a nutshell?
You hit it on head on, correct.
Well, that's
what happens, you guys. You see it in sports teams all the time. They do all the work, they win the Super Bowl, and next year they don't even win a game. They trade everybody, the coaches go somewhere else, etc. You see it all the time. In any success story, right? The rise and fall of Rome. You see it in every single success story. The people that fall off, that get distracted, they say to themselves somehow, okay, I know what got me here. Well, they don't say this, but what got me here is they say, okay, how do I use my success to get away from the fundamentals? They think that somehow they can outsmart hard work, and they always leads them astray all the time. It's just like the Matrix. That's what we call it, the woman in the red dress. There's just shiny objects, right? It just does not work. You have to always master the basics. The people that make the most money in this business, we talk about it all the time, are the people that consistently do the basics every day. And all the people that struggle to make money are the ones that try to outsmart the basics. They have what we call, Abby, the disease of knowledge. They think, Zach Baum, you might be able to speak to this. They think, oh, I've heard that before. Oh, I know about that. Oh, I know about prospecting. Give me the sexy stuff. Give me something better than that I've never heard of before. So then, like Mustafa, okay, let's talk about wholesaling. Let's talk about PPC. He says, ooh, that sounds sexy. Let me go try that. Maybe that will get me out of doing all this stuff. Fair, Mustafa?
Very fair, correct. Very fair. And also just, yes, basically you hit it right on the head there. It's just, you got to focus for a long period of times. And I feel like you can diversify in the future, like Brandon has, but that's, 10, 15, 20 years of, grinding it out. I became very lazy. I was burned out and I was like, okay, how do I just have what I have now and kind of supplement my income essentially? But then you realize, you're doing all this other stuff and you're falling behind, so you're not succeeding at the end of the day.
Here's the truth. You guys are all salespeople. Get over it. The faster you can accept that, the faster you can move on. If you guys were hired at a medical device sales company for a 30-year career, you'd be selling. There is no like on and off. Only realtors behave this way. It's like, oh, that was a lot of work. I don't want to be in sales anymore. How can I diversify? Wait a minute. You're in sales. This is what it looks like. But to your point, it doesn't have to be 20 years, right? It could be, let me hire an admin. I'll buy some time back, but I got to be a great leader. It can't be, let me try an assistant for 30 days. Let me try this lead source for 30 days. These are all leveling up. And so that's a whole nother conversation on how do you scale past personal production. That's a separate conversation. But hopefully, was that helpful?
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you, Mustafa. And just to let you know, you're not the only one. That's why I'm here. We are the queen and king of that. And for running away, I was burned out. And I even did a podcast for something else. Like I really went places, and here I am. So
we're back.
We're back, focused, and glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Being your first day, my biggest advice to you guys is just do every single thing Brandon says. Honestly, you'll be successful. The blueprint's there. It's when you're trying to get away that you start struggling and you realize, why isn't this working? Because you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. So that's just the basics. Yeah.
That's great. Great question, Abby. Valentine, welcome here. Go ahead, Bart. There you go.
Hey, Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Good. Hey, my name's Jared. I don't know why it says my last name there.
Yeah, I don't know why it says that either. That's why I thought. I'm like, oh man, maybe I had the wrong name.
No,
Jared,
you're totally good. I feel bad because you kind of just answered the question I was just going to ask, which was, I met you, just the other day. Through the
workshop, the event we had. Yeah,
thank you. And I was thinking in my head, like, okay, if I was going to scale, I would get a virtual assistant real quickly and help with the cold calls or the an ISA, something like that. So that way you can spend more time on the closing and everything like that. I feel like what you just said though is, admin, get your fundamentals down. Don't strive away from the basics. Would you, when do you include a virtual assistant to make some of the calls? Would you include them now? Is it like, I'm just getting started, or would you do 6 months and then kind of get your feet wet on something like that? I'll tell you, this is a volumes game, truthfully. And it's just as, it's quantity as much as, quality, don't get me wrong as well, but quantity, the more phone calls you make, the more people you're in front of. And so the more people that you have giving you warm leads, like a virtual assistant or something like that. So maybe I just wanted to explore that a little bit, but I kind of got a feel as to where you're at. But
So there's two things. There's virtual assistants and there's virtual ISAs. Let's talk about both of them real quick. This will be great. And then we got to give Mustafa his time back because he's got to get back on the phone. This is a really, really good thing. No, it's all right. This is perfect. So this is a focus game. Focus is the ultimate value proposition. The agent that has the most discipline and focus will always outproduce every other agent. So here's the recommendation. Again, so many people want to fight me on it, but then they come back a year later and say, shit, dude, I should have listened to you. This is exactly how it goes. I made this mistake for 20 years. That's why you paid me to be here. Okay. So you're welcome, Jared, to do it your way. Here's the way that it works. The way that it works is you maximize your personal production, no virtual assistant, no virtual ISA. Step one, you sell as many houses as you can by yourself. Step two, you do not leverage lead generation. You leverage administrative tasks, non-sales or revenue generating activities. You literally are purchasing time because there is no virtual ISA on the planet that will be able to sell as good as you or Mustafa. So if you're looking at buying time, let's just say you bought 2 hours a day through an admin, or you bought 2 hours a day through an ISA. The investment, 2 hours in an admin who's taking off non-dollar productive activities off your plate, and you getting 2 more hours to sell yourself, prospect, meet with new people, you would make way more money, way bigger return on the admin than you would ISA.
I see that.
So level 2 is you leverage out of admin first. Get so much so that you want to get to the point where you're not touching anything but prospecting, lead follow-up, and going on appointments. You're not touching negotiations. You're not touching CMAs. You're not touching presenting offers. You're not touching the clear to close process, the transaction coordination. You're not touching documents. You're not touching title, people from title. You're leveraged fully out of the administrative part of the business. Sort of like, think about like this: dentist, dental hygienist. There is not a dentist in the world that cleans teeth, but realtors do it all the time. So you cannot. So level 1 is to maximize personal production. Level 2, fully optimize admin. Mustafa would agree with this 1,000%. Then level 3 is leveraged lead generation.
Yep.
And the right way to do it is to get out of showing houses in level 3. Level 3 is a showing assistant who shows all property, does all open houses, does all running signs, lock boxes, etc. Then level 4 is listing lead generation, leverage, with an ISA. That is the best way to make money and to actually scale it without having to build it, burn it, build it, burn it, build it, burn it. Mustafa, you agree? 100%?
I agree 100%. Yeah, I'm kind of in that building, reburning period right now in my life too, because I went from
I understand.
level 2 to level 4 and kind of skipped a whole. But I think to their question here, I don't know if this is the right suggestion, but I would consider when you are busy enough, because my problem, I hired a virtual assistant to do a lot of my admin stuff because I was finding myself, I was in way too many appointments with way too many buyers and just didn't have time to write contracts, to send it in time to get it, before the deadline. So that's kind of where 24 was. But I would start with a transaction coordinator. If I go back, maybe just get a transaction coordinator, pay per transaction, less liability, less training, and a lot less headaches, and kind of gives you focus still. So,
yep, it's a great first step. That's like, 0.5 is like get a TC.
Yeah.
But the point is, and we've tested it 1,000 times with people that are in the boardroom, and some still fight me on this, but your return on investment by leveraging out of administrative stuff as a realtor will always pay you more than investing in lead generation with no admin.
Yeah.
Because you're still having to be the admin. See, if you leverage lead generation, let's say you get an ISA or you do PPC or you do direct mail, whatever leverage lead generation, you're still having to manage the administrative part of your sales business. And you're only one person. So your capacity to produce lots of transactions, regardless if you have somebody making the calls for you or not, is still limited because you are still the admin. And not to mention that ISA is going to need a lot of administrative support. You're going to have to feed them data. You're going to have to teach them the dialer. You're going to have to hold them accountable. You're going to have to do so much stuff with that ISA. So Jared, all of that, does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sitting here going like, man, I wish I recorded what the heck you said, Brandon. Do you have a video on this or something like that that kind of goes into it a bit more? I'm like, you just touched the surface in 10 seconds, and I'm like, crap. It says that the meeting's not. Is the meeting being recorded today?
Always. Everything we do is recorded. That's why we do our 5 coaching calls a week. Everything's recorded, so these all get put back. And Jared, we can spend as much time on that as possible as you need. But I am going to be adding a course here soon inside of school that outlines the progression of scaling a business step by step, level by level, and when to do it, how to do it, etc.
I appreciate it, because I guess in my world, I was thinking, I got to get as much help as possible, as quickly as possible, and going to invest in in somebody. But I'll wait patiently and see what advice you give.
Doing it, and you're ready to leverage out of it. That's typical realtor behavior. It's bad entrepreneurship. You can't leverage out of something that you have not yet mastered.
Oh, 100%. I'm saying, like, in my mind, I'm thinking 6 months when I feel like I have some foundation to work with, then I can train other people. But I'm trying to think that way already going forward. So the fact that you're like,
which is great, which is amazing. Again, many people try to do it their way. The recommendation of all the mistakes that I've made in the way that I coach agents that make $1 million or more, we hire admin first.
Yeah.
Not,
I like that.
not lead generation first. We don't use the money that we make from personal production and go and get an ISA or go get Zillow or do PPC. We use that money to invest back into an assistant. That money will be the greatest investment ever. Most agents that do it right, that hire a full-time assistant, can double their production the next year and work less.
Interesting. Yeah, cool.
So anyway, just always remember, right? If you do not have an admin, you are the admin.
Yeah.
And all of that work is not worth more than $25 an hour. I think you got into this business to make a whole lot more than that. Fair?
Yeah. Great.
So that's why we don't do it. Every time you guys are touching a CMA, every time you're taking a call from a title company, every time you're writing an offer, every time you're doing any of that stuff, your net worth goes down. Your income opportunity goes down dramatically. You have to think about it like this. This is the best analogy of all time. If you were an orthopedic surgeon, you make money in the OR. And every time you wipe somebody's butt, take a temperature, check somebody in, call the insurance company, you, as an orthopedic surgeon, your income goes down dramatically. Guess what? That's why you don't see any orthopedic surgeons doing any of that crap. But guess what? Go follow a realtor around. All they do is wipe butts. You know what I mean by wiping butts? It's do everything but do sales. They're doing everything. They're running lock boxes. They're taking pictures. They're uploading photos to the MLS, et cetera, et cetera. They're doing everything but surgery.
Yeah.
They're never in the OR, and that's why they don't make any money.
I currently do finance for a large health group. And so, yeah, you will never see your orthopedic surgeon do that 100%.
Yeah. But isn't it ironic? It still has to get done. But isn't it ironic that that's all realtors do? Like if you followed every realtor around, they rarely do lead generation. It's rare that they're on a listing appointment. Go follow an agent around that makes 1.5, 1.8, 2.6 million. That's all they do. They're talking to prospects and they're presenting all day long. They don't touch anything else.
Cool. I appreciate your insight, Brandon. Thank you, buddy.
You got it. All right, let's go one more, Susan, and then Mustafa. We're already a little bit over, so appreciate you hanging in there, dude.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I just thought about two things that in this conversation, you're either an entrepreneur, so you're building your business, or you're joining a team, because the team provides the back end and then you're just a salesperson, right? So it's almost like, I guess I'm telling myself, choose who I want to be, an entrepreneur or join a team, because that's what I see is like what most successful agents are, leveling up.
Exactly. You're either growing a business, which is what we are, right? Or you just stay as a practitioner. I don't think anything is wrong with that, but we can't also complain when we're not making money and we don't treat it like a business. Treating it like a business means you have leverage. And so if you don't have any leverage, you don't have a business, you just have a job. Mm-hmm. And most realtors would make a lot more working at Home Depot than selling houses.
Cool.
So anyway, that's the moral of the story today. Let's give Mustafa a round of applause. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you for
guys.
helping
Thanks,
us. Thank you for sharing your story. It is inspiring to the entire community. And we'll watch you crush next year. Now you're on the straight and narrow. Now I can't wait for you to get to 20 million. And in your market, that's going to represent what, $500,000-$600,000 in income?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you'll be making as much as the orthopedic surgeons because you're focused. So anyway, awesome job. You guys enjoy the afternoon. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Brandon.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.